Hey everybody, so the idea for today's video, which is going to be called How Much Gear Do You Need, is actually inspired by my friend Keith. 5 Watt World is his channel. And I have Rhett and Dave here, and we're going to talk about this, but I've been cleaning out the entire studio. You probably have never seen this, but this is some of my drum sets here. And if you pan over to this side, Rhett's holding the camera, you can see my reverb, my plate reverb there that has not made it into a video yet either. You can also see my albums. I have a bunch of LPs here, like Larry Carlton, who I just interviewed, and obviously Zeppelin 1, and Bill Evans, and Ornette Coleman, whose music burned in the Universal Fire. So I'm going to turn this room into a video recording room where I'll make some videos too. So this room is kind of like a staging area for all the junk, because I'm a box hoarder. I think, like many of you, you like to keep the boxes that things came in, but after a while it seems ridiculous when you've had something for 20 years and you still have the box. Yeah, I'm going to keep the boxes, I'm going to sell it. Okay, so come on in here. So then we go into here, into the actual studio. Rhett's good at this, okay? And if you really look around, you can see how much stuff I really have. Like, for example, this beautiful PRS hollow body 594. It's amazing, right? But you also see probably the least expensive guitar that I have here too, my Dano, my U2 guitar. Okay, so I also have a lot of electric guitars that I've had forever, many of them. We'll talk about those later, but you guys know I love amplifiers. And typically when we do one of these videos, we have Rhett, Dave, and myself sitting in front of all these beautiful guitar amplifiers. So the three of us are going to now discuss how much gear you really need. Okay, so we are doing something a little different today. Rhett's wearing white. Dave and I are in black.
He didn't get the memo.
Well, it's still white and black. I don't know. Decided I need to stand out a little more today.
You probably should be in the center if you're wearing white.
That's
but that's
true.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so Rhett is a lot closer to the camera. Closer than I am, so he's going to sit back a little bit. There we go, we're more in line here. So, I've been cleaning, as I said, out the studio, and Dave's telling me I need to have a garage sale and just get rid of a bunch of stuff. But I also had people, I've been putting pictures on Instagram of my boxes, and people said you should sell the boxes on eBay.
That's what I'm saying. Right.
Wait,
People would buy empty boxes.
Right.
And
so you have the, box for Rick Beato's 57s.
Well, you need a box for any foot pedal.
Right.
I have it,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Would anybody actually buy your boxes?
No. People in the comments said that if I put them up for sale, that they would buy them.
That's not cool.
I love that.
Okay, well then, all right. Then I've got 6,000 used strings.
I'm trying to think what trash do I have around I could sell?
Picks. I got necks, bodies of guitars. I got pickups.
I bought some snakes today. I could sell the zip ties that I cut that they came shipped in.
Okay, so how much gear do you need? Now, myself, since I do a lot of videos and I like to use the actual gear that is used by the artists. For example, when I did Alex Lifeson, or when I did a Limelight by Rush, Alex Lifeson was playing high watts at the time, and I have a beautiful high watt custom 20 with a 412 cabinet with fanes on it. That's over in the corner. It's a killer amp, and so I wanted to use that. Or, if I do a video on, Van Halen, I'm going to use my Plexi. If I do a video on whoever, I'm going to try and use the closest gear to what the band's used.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I like to have a lot of gear. That's at least my excuse.
I'll agree with that for that excuse.
Now, sitting to my left, Dave Honorado here has owned way more gear than all of us combined.
Actually, this is really just
and I'm
an
not proud of
intervention.
this fact.
This is just an intervention for Dave.
Yeah.
I'm asking it as a video.
Okay, keep talking.
How many guitars have you owned, Dave?
I honestly, I really don't know. But me personally, that I can sort of generalize, since the late 80s, I'm probably hitting close to 500 guitars. Now, a lot of these guitars I bought to resell. I didn't buy them to play them on stage. Sure. But I am guilty of definitely keeping a lot of guitars around. So I'm not going to say that I'm not, I'm not completely rehabilitated. But
when Dave says he owns a guitar, then he'll pull out his phone and actually show you a picture of it.
Yeah,
or something that he's owned in the past.
Well, I mean, I have an addiction, and I don't mind sharing.
and amplifiers.
Oh yes, same thing. About probably, I would say maybe a little less amplifiers, but
And something that you guys have all seen Dave in videos here, but Dave used to work at a huge studio in town, Triclops, and you worked on Smashing Pumpkins, Siamese Dream.
Siamese Dream, Warren Haynes' first solo record. We did Whole Live Through This.
Yeah,
we
Courtney
did,
Love.
Courtney Love. We did COC Deliverance. We did a whole bunch of stuff. Think Dave Malmsteen. We did just a plethora of stuff. Yeah.
So Dave has worked on a lot of big records. He's a studio guy, beyond being an expert guitarist and guitar technician, if you will.
He says that. That's not me.
Okay, so Rhett, let's talk about it.
About gear?
Yeah, about your gear obsession.
Okay, well, hi, my name's Rhett, and I have a gear problem.
Hello, Rhett.
Hey, Rhett.
Hey, so, okay, I haven't owned as many guitars as you have, or amps as you do, but I definitely have more than what I need, right? And if that's sort of the spirit of this discussion, how much gear do you need? The answer, realistically, as a guitar player, you need a guitar. If you're an electric player, you need an amp, and you need a cable. And that's it, technically, right? And you could debate of those three things what and how much each of those are worth, and I think it goes without saying that I have a lot more than just those three staples of gear.
Well, I was telling Dave, I was watching Larry Carlton's rig rundown on Premier Guitar, which they have about 50 commercials on when you watch the video. I mean, every 2 seconds there's a commercial. Yeah. So he's talking about recording Kid Charlemagne, which I'd asked him about, and he had his old Fender Tweed Princeton there, and he said, the guy was like, so you just plugged into that, nothing else? He goes, yeah, that's it. And he goes, how loud did you turn up? I mean, there's only 3 knobs on it. So it's either 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, all the way,
Yeah.
So
that's it.
That was it. No
That's the
reverb,
tone.
no nothing. That was the
Now
tone.
it depends on, I think, also what style of music you're playing, and if you're gigging or doing the hired gun thing or the studio thing, then we start to get into, okay, if you're playing in a professional setting, then yes, there's some things that you need to pull off, your sound professionally. So like the gigs that I have, the sound I have to get, it requires a few extra things. Like I need a specific fuzz pedal. It was this pedal that was used on the record that I'm playing.
That's actually very common.
Yeah, it's Jextalis Canyon Climber. If you know that pedal, it's super specific. It's kind of the only thing that does its sound. So you do that kind of thing a few times, and then all of a sudden your board goes from, oh, it's just 3 or 4 pedals, to now it's like, oh, I've got 10 pedals and a switcher, a MIDI switcher, so I can bank between songs and hit all the different presets and everything I need to do. That's how this thing gets out of hand quickly. And then, every winter NAMM, we all watch the YouTube videos of, oh man, Earthquaker just came out with this new whatever pedal, or Beatronics.
Or we actually go to Winter NAMM.
Or we go to Winter NAMM. That was really bad. When you actually get to see the stuff, i.e. the high watt right there.
Yeah. Which I had owned before, that high watt.
The Park.
The Park, yes.
Yeah. So if you're on a budget, don't go to NAMM.
So one of the things that I bought that I didn't need to buy, even though I did, was and you haven't seen it in a video yet, but my Ampeg SVT. What year is it, Dave? 68 or so?
68, first year, yeah.
First year. Dave made me buy this because I've been telling him, I said, Dave, I want to buy an SVT.
Yeah, I was like, buy a real one.
Right.
Not to say that the others aren't real, but I was like, if you're going to really go for the classic thing, that's it.
And this has really been months, and then one day Dave sends me this thing, and he said, you need to buy this, and it wasn't that expensive.
No, that's why I was saying it was a good deal, and you should buy it because you need at least one of those for the
But we didn't know what kind of shape it was in when I bought it, and it's 92 pounds, and immediately when I got it, Dave took it and had this guy in town, Jeff Bakos, who's great at this stuff, he's an expert at this, and Jeff went over it, and there was a bad
couple
things, right? But it was
mainly
incredibly good shape.
They're tanks, man.
And it sounds phenomenal. And there will be a video what a cranked SVT sounds like, but it takes 2 people to put it up there. Now, did I need that? No, I have a great dark glass Alpha Omega amp that's 900 watts that can get any sound you want out there. But that looks incredibly cool and it sounds phenomenal.
Okay, but I think there's a part of this discussion we should address too, especially for people that might be just getting into music, guitar specifically, because I feel like guitarists, our sort of corner of musicianship is, I think, more gear intensive than other musicians, maybe drummers, keyboard players. I don't know. Maybe that's not true. But I feel like from my perspective as a guitar player, I mean, you can't see, but there's a pedal or a table literally overflowing with pedals right here.
And there's pedals over here. And there's pedals over
They
here.
will be shown soon.
So the thing about that I was going to say is, like, don't get into playing guitar or music and think that you have to have all of this stuff in order to become a great guitar player or to have fun on your instrument. Because the reality is, going back to a guitar, a cable, and an amp, if you can make that sound good or you can enjoy playing that, then that really is all you need. And then you'll learn more as you slowly start to accumulate gear. You know, you get a reverb pedal and you learn the ins and outs of how that sounds. You get a fuzz pedal and learn how it interacts with the amp that you have and the guitars that you have. I think that's really the best way to go about this stuff. You know, I don't think any of us are saying you shouldn't own gear, you shouldn't own more than 2 guitars or whatever. But I think the best way, if you are getting into this stuff, is to go slow and take your time and really learn the gear that you have before you get into something new and start, you know, we all have gear acquisition syndrome.
Okay, so I want to say right here that when I built this studio, it was 2005, budgets were going down, and in order for me to continue to make a living, I needed to have my own place, because bands honestly couldn't afford to pay a producer, an engineer, my assistant GL, and pay for the studio time. So I had to build the studio, but then I had to fill it with gear, and I had to have 24 mic pre's in order to track bands live. Mm-hmm. And they're incredibly expensive to buy that. And I had to have microphones to not only mic an entire drum set, but to mic up all the amps and basses and vocals.
And not just cheap microphones. You had to have the microphones. Because people would choose your studio based on what gear you have.
People used to look at gear list before they came in. Wait, well, you don't have a Neumann U47? What? You don't have a... Wait, do you have an SVT? And, you know, it reminded me of Tim Pierce talking about the arms race. Where, he said in the 80s, all the session players in LA in the 90s, it was an arms race. Everyone had to have, they showed up with 10 amps and 10 guitars. And, wait, you don't have your electric sitar? And then they, freak out. Tim would freak out. It's like, where's my electric sitar?
I feel like if I walked into a session and somebody asked me that, I'd probably just leave. I'm clearly not the player you're looking for. So
okay, so when I got here, when I finished the studio, I called Dave. What do I need? I already had a few amps because I'm a billionaire.
Well, you would come to Triclops. You saw what we had over there, which was basically, honestly, you just have a small version of what we had over there. So
this is what all studios used to be like.
Yeah,
too.
I mean, we had a Neve console, we had Studer machines, we had, all of the classic, outboard gear, Marshall, Plexis, all that stuff. And when you called me, I basically knew, I was like, well, you're doing a rock studio, so I know what you're going to want. So that was right off the bat. I was like, okay, you need at least one really good Marshall head. You need a really good, some kind of good Fender stuff.
Which I already had some of the, I had the Marshalls and Fenders.
Right. And then some of the small quirky stuff.
Yes.
That were all little hidden gems that honestly I learned about just either by accident, by buying something.
Like the Skylark. The Sovtech MiG 100H.
Totally. And so those kind of things were just, honestly, just scouring pawn shops at the time, picking stuff up and just trying it and putting it through its paces and going, wow, this is really great, or this isn't that great, and a lot of the gear acquisition that I had, that's what it was. I was buying stuff and selling stuff, and the stuff that was really cool I'd keep, and especially the stuff that nobody really knew about, and then the obvious stuff, there was, as I've told.
No, Dave, it wasn't a problem. You were simply just doing market research.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I fully realized that an orange cabinet could be used as a dinette table. I mean, it really worked. It's got multiple purposes. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So, I mean, hey, but No, but definitely when you called me though, I was like, okay, well, you know, I know what you're going for, and you'd already been to Triclops and saw what that was about, and so, you know, I think with a studio, especially a studio owner, producer, I don't think there should be, if you have a budget and you can do it and you need the equipment, buy it, because it is going to make the record that much better. You're going to make the artist that much more happy. And
artists didn't want, and I think one of the things too, Dave, is that I would have bands come in that were signed bands, but they'd come in off the road with their road gear, and it was horrible.
Yeah,
it's played terribly.
Right.
We couldn't use it ever, so I needed to have all the kind of gear they would feel comfortable playing through.
Because, and as you know, typically what usually makes the record is never what people thought it was.
No.
So even at Tricops, I mean, literally we had like 20 Marshall heads, old vintage stuff, and what we used the most of were tiny amps being pushed really heavily and compressed with pool techs or whatever, and you would tell people, they go, you know, instantly they hear it, they go, oh, well, that's, you know, what is that? That's got to be Marshall stuff, and you go, no, it's that, yeah, Gibson Skylark over there,
GA5,
and they would just go, how is that possible? And that was kind of the cool thing about it, because that's, for me, when I realized, yeah, you really don't need a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of things with, if you just got to get creative with it. So, and it's still that way, and it's even more that way now with all the digital stuff. It's, you know, how do you make the digital stuff sound cool? And so it's a whole nother end of things that,
So,
you know.
but one of the things is that I never really got rid of stuff. I got rid of a few things, but I've kept everything, which is why you've always seen gear. And I've consolidated it to this part of the studio. I always had multiple cabinets in my ISO booth there set up. And I mean, I've got about 15 412 cabs. I've always owned a lot of those, and then we've kind of been moving things. We stage it here a little bit because you need some type of backdrop, and why not have all this cool gear for a backdrop? Because we don't have a backdrop.
Really expensive backdrop.
Yeah.
But
And you guys love the way it looks anyway.
but the reason that I have all this stuff was because I needed it back in 2005. That's, you know, that was the time when budgets started to go down, and in order to be competitive, you needed to have certain gear. Everyone expected you to have. Oh, you don't have Neve mic pre's?
Well, I would argue that you specifically need it now, because you are now educating millions of people all over the world, who most of those people don't have access to any of this stuff back here, and you're teaching people like, hey, here's what an old orange sounds like, or hey, here's what was used on this record, I have it right here, and here's how it was set up, and here's how it sounds. Like, that is really valuable stuff, especially for younger players coming up now, where a lot of it is in the digital realm, whether it be the Helix or the Headrush or the Kemper or a plug-in or whatever. You know, being able to actually show the real thing on camera, recorded well, so people actually know what the real thing sounds like, what it feels like. I mean, I think that's invaluable. So I would say, yeah, you do need this stuff.
I feel a lot better about it now.
What we're all doing is just trying to rationalize each other.
So
you guys are, but I was telling them before that I going from, at one point, I hate to say it, but at one point I had around 82 guitars at one time. Most of them were buy to sell vintage, but I'm down to 7 guitars right now. And for me, that's a big deal. And the way I've rationalized, put it in perspective is, okay, I've built these 3 guitars, so that doesn't really count, because I need to buy those. So then the rest, so I'm down to 4 guitars, and I'm like going, and even at that point, I'm like, yeah, a couple of those could go maybe, you know. So, and I will say, you know, and I always tell people, you know, buy what you can afford. You know, don't overbuy. And I've overbought a lot, and that has really come back to bite me in the past. And so I always tell people, you know, if you can't afford it, you don't, you know, you would love to own it, but you don't need it. So you have to separate that from reality. You know, you got to make, you know, if you can't pay rent, but you're gonna think, oh, I need this $2,000 Les Paul for my gig in a week, you don't. So just, and don't go into hot trying to get it, because you're ultimately, I can tell you multiple times, it's going to get sold really quickly.
That's why you keep the boxes. Right? I mean, it always is better if you sell it with a box.
That's it.
Now, just before we came on camera, Dave was playing my classical guitar. I have a Guild Classical that I got in 1977. And it's the only classical guitar I have, and I've kept it. I love the way it plays. And Christopher Parkening played it, who's one of the greatest classical guitarists ever that's ever lived. He played it because he married one of my guitar students, Teresa.
Oh, he played that one.
He played that particular guitar when he came in to meet me.
Yeah.
And Teresa, his wife, took lessons with me for 3 years.
Wow.
And she said one day, Chris is going to come in. He wants to meet you. And I said, what? So I brought my guild in.
I can just see this going.
And he picked up my guild and he played it for about an hour and a half, 1 foot away from me. It was amazing in this music store.
That's awesome.
But I've been buying things. I mean, I've been buying pedals, for example, since the 70s. Mm-hmm. And you think, I mean, this stuff I bought when it was not. I mean, it was expensive. How much was an MXR flanger in 1978 when they came out, Dave? $100?
$80.
Yeah. So
around the same price they are now.
Right. So I've been buying this stuff for 40 years. Typically, nowadays, if I'm going to buy something, I sell something. Mm-hmm. That's always my rule. If you're going to buy something,
that's a good rule.
Sell something else.
I do the same thing for the most part, which means I usually don't buy a lot of stuff because I like to, my philosophy is like I want to hold on to this stuff like you have done, like with the pedals and stuff. I want to have a lot of the gear that I bought when I was in my early to mid to late 20s, 25, 30 years from now, because who knows what the gear landscape is going to look like 5 years from now, much less that far away. So I would like to be able to have all my stuff. So for me, that means I do a lot of research, and very rarely do I make an impulse buy, especially on a big ticket item like a guitar or even pedals and stuff, because a lot of pedals, especially in the boutique world, man, are just expensive.
Oh yeah,
you know?
Sure.
I mean, $300 or something, $250, like that's not not
that
cheap.
freaks me out.
Yeah, but the trade-off with that is most of the gear that I bought for a very specific reason and a very specific use, and none of it gets sold because I use basically all of the gear that I have. I use on a weekly, if not daily, basis.
Okay, so you guys saw all the drum sets in there. Now, I'm not doing any drum sessions anymore. Do I need all those drum sets? No. But it's hard to sell a drum set if you don't have the boxes.
Dude, did you buy them with the boxes?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think you did.
And honestly, most of those drum sets, or some of the drum sets I bought piece by piece. I'd buy them on eBay. I'd say, oh, there's a 50s 13-inch Slingerland Tom, and I would buy that.
Yeah.
And then I would have somebody, eventually I'd get all the pieces together that sounded good, I'd buy and sell them. And then I have your buddy there, Matt, rewrap them so they all match.
Well, and the truth be told, I mean, most drum kits in the studio, none of it matches. You're always mismatched. Whatever sounds the best is what you're going to go with. So you're never going for the look. So it doesn't matter. But no, well, drums. Here's the other thing. I mean, just because you're not using them now doesn't mean you're not going to use them either. No. So you could. I mean, and knowing you in 6 months, you go, you know what? I think I'm going to start doing some live drums again. I want to do. Yeah, you've got it.
We were actually talking about that before we came on about resetting up a drum set in here, having it mic'd up all the time, and actually doing some playing in videos, which we will start doing, but.
Well, and you've used them in your videos.
I have.
So, you play drums, and so, you use them. As much as I could sit here and rag about, how you don't use this, he uses, I would say 75% of what's in here, he uses quite a bit.
Yeah.
So,
that pump organ is not part of this.
No, but the pump organ would be used if...
it was in tune?
If it was in tune. The guy so I had a pump organ that was perfectly in tune. There's a guy in town that tuned it for me. And... you can actually tune old pump organs, and this one, if they're sharp, because they have metal reeds on them. And this one is sharp, but the guy wouldn't come over and pick this one up. I called him about 20 times.
Would
this guy
you?
Rod, his name. He did actually come over the first time, picked up my first pump organ, and eventually the billows rot on them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 100 and some odd years old, but
you still have the box for that one.
Yeah. So. Moral of the story here is we've got a lot of boxes and a pump organ for sale. Boxes are empty and the pump organ.
So after 40 years,
no, I'm keeping the pump organ.
Yeah.
So boxes are for sale.
I would say my take on all of it is, as long as you can afford what you have, it makes you happy, and you think it sounds good, not what somebody else thinks if it sounds good. If you think it sounds good, and it brings you joy, and it makes you play, and it inspires you, then hey, there's a lot worse you could do with your money. So,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, that's...
Yes. It doesn't matter what some commenter on the gear page or Reddit thinks about how many
Doesn't matter
guitars
what I
you
think,
have.
what he thinks.
Yeah.
It's what you think
Yes.
and what makes you play.
If you have 15 PRSs and they're all the same color, if that's what you're into, then that's what you're into, man. You know?
Yeah.
Doesn't
When
matter.
I interviewed Larry Carlton last week, and I was shocked that he brings his 335 out, but he said, I love playing that guitar. That's what
It's his guitar.
What it's for.
and you know, and that inspires his playing when you're playing something that you like the feel of and that sounds great to you, and that's everything really.
Yeah. I mean, perfect example is, I mean, you know, Van Halen's Frankenstein Strat. Total pile of junk of parts that he threw together, didn't know what he was doing, and he was like, but listen to it, and it inspired him, and then everybody wanted one. And it was
right.
like, you know, it's just that thing. It's like, man, if it pushes that button, it makes you happy, it makes you play, then it's a great piece of gear. I don't care if it's a $20 junk little pedal, a capo, a really cool pick. I mean, it could be anything. So it's you know, like I said, there's always worse things you can do with your money, I think. As long as you're not going into hock and you're homeless and you have a car full of gear that you're sleeping in, I'd say you're okay. You know, it's like, you know.
I mean, this stuff's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
Music is supposed to be fun and enjoyable and a way to express yourself. And if that's what's fun to you and you get enjoyment and joy out of that, then by all means.
Yeah, because I think all of us
Get what you want.
I mean, we all do this because we like to share what we've learned and what we've wasted our money on. At least we can tell some people, like, hey, don't buy that because it is a waste of money, or buy this because it is cool. And you know, so you know, you like to teach, you love to play and show everybody. I do the same thing. So it's that's why we do this. It's like a community thing. It's like, you know, we all have this affliction and it's okay. It's like we're not hurting anybody, but. You know, I mean, you can't have too many things, and if things aren't getting used, okay, that's where I kind of draw a line where I go, I haven't played that guitar in a year.
They haven't played something in a year.
Let somebody else have it so they can play it.
Exactly,
You know, it's like-
exactly. Well, so we want to know what you think. Please leave your comments in the comment section. Subscribe to Rhett's channel. It be in the description below. Subscribe to Dave's Facebook. It'll be
I don't
in the
have a
description.
channel.
He doesn't have a channel.
He needs one though.
We're working on it.
We're working on it. Everybody comment in the comment section how bad you want to see Dave Honorato talk about guitars and gear. Literally the most knowledgeable
How bad you
human
want to see
being.
H3 talk about...
No. Literally the most knowledgeable human being
man.
I know when it comes to guitars and amps and pedals and stuff. This is the dude right here.
And follow my friend Keith Williams,
Yeah.
his channel 5 Watt World, because that's where we got the idea for this video. We talk about this all the time. Keith has
Yes.
been sitting in this chair in the past.
The fourth stooge who's not here.
The fourth stooge. Thanks. See you guys.